Good morning, everyone. Are you going to sing again? Please be seated. What a wonderful way to start our day. Let's hear it again. Let's hear it for the Stonebridge Singers. Thank you for joining us for the official dedication of the United States Postal Service's commemorative forever stamp honoring George Morrison. We have a wonderful program for you today with several special guests, and I'm sure you'll enjoy our program. It is the day of social media. If you'd like to share our event, our hashtag is George Morrison Stamps with an S. For your sharing pleasure, thank you. Spread the news. This is an absolutely fantastic event that I'm blown away to see so many people here. Wow. Thank you for coming. Today we stand together to honor our Anishinaabe relative. To me, Grand Portage is in everything George gave us. I see the big lake, trees, and the line where the sky meets the water. This is our Anishinaabe homeland. George's work honors our home and today we honor George. Buju, Songwaywe Sindishnakaz, Gichion Goming Nindonjaba. Hello, my name is Beth Drost. I am the Executive Director of the Cook County Grand Marais Joint Economic Development Authority, and I'm a proud band member, tribal citizen of the Grand Portage Band of Ojibwe. I hope that you have a wonderful program today. To start us off in a good way, we are going to start with the pipe ceremony. I'd like to welcome Neeb Abed to the stage or to wherever he wants to be to conduct the pipe ceremony. And please turn your attention to over here where Neeb is.
Welcome everybody. Hello. Neepton Vision Cause. Gege Dash. Mino Gijigan. Get you on the gunning. It's a beautiful day in Grand Portage. Asema Dash Nigita Mini Gug. Get you gunning. Anishinaabe. Kumagaini. Dayan. Umasa. Bewene. Ne Daguzid Wasa. Wawate. Kune. Cabo, Yuma, McQueenman, Wayne, Chogima, Chamukumanik, Wayne, Ubitanana Mawan, Wayne Dash Chawasu, the Negan, the name dog was it Savo, and then the pipe here before the Chonagum people, the members of the Morrison family, and the United States people and the representatives that are here on behalf of the memory and the issuance of the stamp today. We going to do, Great Spirit. Wabanung, Chawanung, Tabianung, Giwanung, Giotai, Manidugi, Great Spirit, four directions, Waywenik, Dapanawa, go the same Awa, Magachoni, Kami, Umasa, Waywini, and dog was in Nongum, Mawate, Kone, Gabo. Travasa did a dog with Nikan. You know, this day will be around for a long time, you know, the great honor that Mawate, Kone, Gabo is being Magaya King, Sagagani Gayai, Kanamanidu, Kanakuti Tapanawa, Sema, Vivani Gatanama, Hongum, Takashanawat, Mukumana, Chogima, and the Nima, the Payment, Minaguma, and Choganagami, Gima. Day that when animosity and when Buju, our culture here, all of our grace, all of our spirits. No, I just like you shake them out, Gagi, my rainy, we do question on my rainy, my wasa, the rain dog, so on my rainy, the chicken, go to Shanab, get Chana, Gami, my rainy, the Minus Seva, Oma, so rainy, and then the mark way to say one. If the good extra go in, if I want to straight talk with the animal, get on with the program, I don't have any more to say, be rich.
Jimmy Witch. Very good, Janine. All right, great. And the pipe song. Should we stand? Miigwech. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare amongst the sinking air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Thank you so much. That was lovely. Many thanks to the Grand Portage Veterans Honor Guard and to Liz Jackala, Breon Morrison, and Roxanne Berglund. Thank you. Okay. In our culture, we bring out the flags and then we put them away. Pardon. And so. Miigwech. Thank you so much, Stonebridge singers. We're getting so many great songs from you today in honor of George Morrison. I'm so happy that you're all here. It's exciting to be surrounded by so many people wanting to pay tribute to our honoree. As with many artists, he was underappreciated in his time. All of you here today in this room are giving that much-deserved recognition of his contribution to our world. It is truly a special honor to be with you here. To provide us with welcoming remarks, we're pleased to have Robert Dishaw, Chair of the Grand Portage Band of Lake Superior Chippewa Tribal Council, and he will be followed by Heather Boyd from the National Park Service and our own as well, Committeeman John Morin. So please join us on the stage, Robert, and welcome. Thank you so much. Miigwech.
Okay, welcome. Way to get this off, Stonebridge, and get it in a good way. Welcome to Kitchionigaming, our homeland. Last fall, Breon called me, and he said they were going to do a stamp for his dad, and I said, "Oh, well, that's nice," you know. I didn't. I figured we were going to be going to the post office, and have one of them little things and pull it off, I guess I was wrong. But anyway, growing up here as a kid, George moved up here, and he would come up. I worked at the store, and he would come up there, and he would talk with us once in a while. Not a whole lot, but anyway. I just want to say miigwech from Grand Portage for everybody attending today, to honor George Morrison and his impact on Native American art. So, miigwech.
I'm a little shorter than Bobby. Bonjour and welcome to beautiful Grand Portage. My name is Heather Boyd, and I am the currently acting superintendent at Grand Portage National Monument, just located down the road. As a fellow Anishinaabe person, I'm honored to have been asked to be a part of today's celebration. While the continued winter weather would not allow us to have the stamp ceremony on site at the monument, today marks the official opening of the George Morrison exhibit at the Heritage Center. The hours today are until 4:30, and the exhibit will be available through September. Please stop by. Also, in conjunction with the celebration, we have opened the historic depot area, including the Great Hall and the kitchen, for your pleasure. Please come tour the exhibiting grounds today if you have a chance. Please enjoy your time and visit to Grand Portage. Thank you.
I'm a little bit taller than Heather. Bonjour, Nawauma. Welcome to, hello to all of you here. And I greet you with the language that George, my mother, my Uncle George, my mother, and the rest of the Morrison children, it was their first language until they all ended up going to boarding schools at some point in time in their life. But my mother, she continued speaking it. She, knew she didn't lose it. And every once in a while I'd hear my grandma Morrison would come and visit us in Minneapolis, and I'd hear them talking in the kitchen, and I'd walk in there and say, "What are you saying?" And well, she had some traumatic experiences in boarding school, and a lot of our people forgot their language. And so she so wanted me to succeed in an English-speaking school. We were in South Minneapolis at that time. My dad had gotten a job at the Veterans Hospital. And so I was out playing one day, and I come in a house, and there was my mom scrubbing the floor, just dusting. And, I'd seen her clean before, but she seemed to have more of a spirit behind her. And I had heard about my Uncle George ever since I was a little boy, and I hadn't met him yet. So I was about 6 years old. And my mother I woke up one morning, and my mom was still cleaning. And she said, "Uncle George is coming today. Now you kids got to behave." Whoa, okay. But she'd talk about my Uncle George, and you could hear the pride. I think not only that she had, but all of the siblings of my Uncle George all had very, very much pride in the success that he was having as an artist. So I remember that. I was about 6 years old the first time I met him. But my first impression was not my Uncle George. it was this big black dog, Kobe, that he had had all the time. And like I'm 6 years old, and I wasn't the biggest kid in the world, but this dog was big to me. And my sister, as soon as they seen it, they started crying. You know, because Kobe was just kind of a very animated animal, but he was gentle. You know, my mother said, go up and pet him, go up and pet him. And so I finally went up and petted him, and he just like mellowed out. So he was that kind of animal. So pride, all the time my mother talked about my Uncle George, I could hear the pride in her voice. I think all the Morrison family, his brothers and sisters, were really proud about his success and what he was doing and the recognition that was given to him as he went. And artists, I know we got artists in here. That's a tough life. That is a very tough life. You got to work hard. You got to be persistent. And so my Uncle George, he was a very persistent, very worked hard to get where he got to. And my mother would always talk about him. So at an early age, I believe, we all have gifts. We're born with gifts. Sometimes, some of us, it takes a little bit longer to realize those gifts and be able to use them gifts in life. But I think my Uncle George, at a very early age, understood his gift of art. And I would just end this with saying he used it, and he used it in a very powerful way. I think today that for many of the reasons why he's being honored with his artwork, that he put his life into it. I remember when he moved to Minneapolis in 1970 to teach at the University of Minnesota, and I went over, we helped him with this church that they had bought in St. Paul. But I remember going over there one day, and it was the first time I ever seen the wood collage that he did. And this was it was as wide as this thing here. And I think I just looked at it, and I just stood there and just marveled at it. And I said, where did you get all of that wood? And these were pieces of wood that he had collected, all of his journeys all over the world. And then, but what I noticed, see, like this wood here, it was perfect. And I said, well, how did you get it so even like that? Did you have to sand it? He said, no, it's all natural. Can you imagine the patience it took to take? I mean, this was like 8 feet long, about 4 feet high. It was a lot of little pieces of wood that he had collected. And I just marveled at it because I said, what patience my uncle had to be able to sit for hours after hours and just fit these pieces of people. And this painting that we're going to honor him with was similar to that, how you put one of my cousins, Donovan, did that. And I think it really represents what the kind of work my Uncle George did. So I'd just like to thank everyone for coming and honoring my uncle, who worked so hard to be successful. And he did achieve that success, and I think today is an honor of the success that he worked so hard to achieve. So, miigwech.
Thank you all. This is a tremendous honor, a day of remembrance for George Morrison and his contribution. Now I'm delighted to present our first guest speaker, Breon Morrison of the Grand Portage Band of Ojibwe. Breon is a renowned jazz guitarist, musician, composer, and son of the late George Morrison. Please give a warm welcome to Breon Morrison.
Hello. Bonjour. Thank you for joining me here today to honor my father and his legacy on this special day. I'm pleased to see you all here. This is a very special and momentous occasion for me to share this event here in Grand Portage with all the people from Grand Portage and beloved friends and family and lovers and admirers of his work. As a child, I never questioned what he was. It was simple. He was a painter and a professor of art. To me, he was a very serious man, serious in his work. His decisions were unquestioned. His intentions were clear. And it was clear to me and to everyone that he knew what he liked. And I admired that about him. I know my father loved his home here in Grand Portage and his heritage, and he was very proud of who he was. It is such an honor to him and his legacy that there is a George Morrison Forever stamp. And I would like to thank the United States Postal Service, the Grand Portage Tribal Council, the people of Grand Portage, and all the people that loved him. Make-Wish.
Thank you, Breon. What an incredible tribute. Please, I don't do this very often, I apologize. I'm now pleased to introduce someone that I've known for a very long time and have looked up to. Acclaimed artist, Professor Emerita, Minneapolis College of Art and Design, and former wife of George Morrison, Miss Hazel Belvo. Miss Belvo's artwork has been recognized. Miss Belvo's artwork has been recognized with numerous awards and is included in many private, public, and museum collections, including the Steinway Collection in New York, the Bezalel Museum in Israel, the Minneapolis Institute of Art, and the Minnesota Museum of American Art. Please give a big welcome to Hazel Belvo.
Oh, this is amazing. Hello to everyone. In George's words, quote, "In this search for my own identity, I seek the power of the rock, the magic of the water, the religion of the tree, the color of the wind, and the enigma of the horizon." I met George at the end of 1959. He was 40 years old, and he had 15 one-man shows in New York City. He had had a scholarship that took him to Minneapolis to study at the Minneapolis College of Art and Design, a Vanderlip scholarship from there to go to New York and study at the Art Students League, a Guggenheim Fellowship that took him to Europe to live in France, and he was just beginning a series of visiting artist positions around the country when I met him. And he relied on the mail. The U.S. Postal Service was his link to his home and to his people. He wrote to his mother twice a month, all the years that I knew him, until she died. He received and read the Moccasin Telegraph wherever he was in the world. And he never, ever missed voting in his reservation elections by mail. In 1961, when our son was born in New York City, he immediately registered Breon with the Grand Portage tribe by U.S. mail. Over the years, our lives and our work took both of us to many different places and around the world, but our correspondence was consistent from 1960 to 2000. It's so appropriate that he's being honored with his work printed on the United States postage stamps because he loves stamps. He collected stamps, he saved stamps, and if you were lucky enough to get a letter from him, on the envelope would be several stamps that added up to the current cost of the letter. I always thought that it was like him making a collage. In September of 1960, George wrote to me from New York, to me in Ohio, and he wrote, "I met with a Siamese importer. I'm sending you a package, 5 yards of raw silk, purple and black, for you, and 3.5 yards of silk, yellow, green, and red, for a shirt for me." And then in May of 1976, I went through all his letters and I got one from each decade, just a quote. In May of '76, George wrote, "From the battlefield of the Little Bighorn to me in St. Paul," he said, quote, "I stood in the middle of the battlefield. I wept. And then I went into the gift shop and I said, 'Give me 3.5 yards of custard.'" It took 3.5 yards to make him a shirt, and he wore that. It was a printed fabric from a drawing that had been done of Custer's Last Stand, and they had made cloth from it, and that became his sort of trademark shirt. And I did a portrait of him in that shirt. In 1987, he wrote from Grand Portage to me in Spain, "I saw a loon as big as life last night from the bed and looked diagonally through the cathedral windows. Jupiter is moving westward, always with Sagittarius." He had a telescope and he loved to look at the stars. In September of 1999, George wrote from Grand Portage to Paris. He wrote, "I got your letter and mailers yesterday. I will certainly get off mail to you as soon as possible. I know how important and nice it is to receive mail from a faraway home." And he wrote, "What keeps me going here is, of course, the magic of the water, the air, and the rock, which I look at all times. I always say, it changes by the hour." Big witch. Okay, good.
Thank you so much, Hazel. We're fortunate to have several other honored guests in the audience, with many museum executives, curators, and artists in attendance. We welcome all the family and guests who have traveled great distances to be here. I know there is a lot of family here today. We'd also like to recognize as representatives of the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe, Chief Executive Melanie Benjamin. As a chair of the Boyce Fort Ojibwe, Kathy Chavers has joined us today as well. Thank you. Are also Grand Portage Tribal Council members April McCormick, Secretary Treasurer, Bill Myers is committee man, thank you, and Marie Spry is here as well, representing our tribal government. We'd also like to recognize Mr. Rob Eklund, who has joined us. Representative, thank you. And then we'd also like to name a few people, very special people who hold these beautiful pieces in their collections. We'd like to thank the Plains Art Museum, the Minnesota Museum of American Art, and Bill and Krista Thornburg. Thank you so much. Could you all please stand that I just talked to you about and let yourselves be recognized by this fantastic group? Now for the moment we've been waiting for, the dedication of the George Morrison Forever Stamps. To do the honors, we have a Postal Service Chief Customer and Marketing Officer, Steve Monteith. Steve leads the organization's efforts to grow the brand, improve customer service, develop products and crisis strategies, and manage relationships with the Postal Services and its many, many business partners. Please welcome Steve Monteith to the stage.
Okay. Well, good afternoon. Wow, what a crowd. What a tribute. And the communication and the use of the letters and the postage was so moving. So it's just such an honor to be here. And I'm really pleased to have that honor to represent the United States Postal Service in the dedication of the George Morrison stamp. Let me start by thanking Chairman Deschamps and the Grand Portage Tribal Council for hosting us here. We probably couldn't have fit into the post office, right? So, as well as Heather Boyd and the National Park Service for their partnership in helping us pull all this together. I also really would like to thank the Morrison family, our honored guests, the community, and the tribal officials for their support. This is really looking out, it's a real testament to the influence that George Morrison had and all the people that he touched. So it's just a delight for me to be here. So before we get to the stamp part, I do have a few words I need to say, so bear with me. George Morrison is considered one of the nation's greatest modern artists and a founding figure in Native American modernism. He challenged the very idea of what Native American art should be, arguing that an artist's identity can exist independently from the nature of the art that he creates. That's one of the many reasons we chose to honor George Morrison. The Postal Service has a proud history of celebrating America's rich and varied heritage through its stamp program. We view stamps as miniature works of art themselves, and each one is designed to educate and appeal to people around the world, and they do. I've met a number of stamp collectors just mingling before, and it really does. Today, near the home he loved, and with this breathtaking view of Lake Superior, and I'll digress a second, driving up here, you could really see the inspiration that you could get. It is so beautiful up here, and such a delight to be here. It really inspired much of his later work, and so we gather to add George Morrison's name and work to a very long list of celebrated artists features on U.S. stamps, including people like Edmonia Lewis, Emilio Sanchez, Ruth Asawa, Ellsworth Kelly, and Andrew Wyeth, just to name a few. George Morrison produced countless works, but perhaps he's best known for his monumental wood collages and abstract landscapes. So the pane of 20 stamps that we're about to dedicate showcases 5 of his abstract landscapes. The first row, it features sun and river. That's watercolor and crayon on paper. The second row is Phenomena Against the Crimson, Lake Superior landscape. That's acrylic on canvas. The third displays Lake Superior landscape. That's also acrylic on canvas. The fourth row highlights Spirit Path, New Day, Red Rock Variation, Lake Superior Landscape. It's acrylic and pastel on paper. And the last row features Untitled, colored pencil on paper. The salvage area, which is the area around the stamps themselves, features a photograph of George Morrison at his home studio, Red Rock, here in Grand Portage. The photo was taken by Marlene Wisery, and Antonio Alcala designed the pane and served as art director for the Postal Service on this project, working with the family and others. It's a wonderful collection of stamps, and it really captures George Morrison's distinctive style. Though he passed away 22 years ago, George Morrison is a leading light of art in Minnesota, as you've heard, and also in U.S. modernism more broadly. We hope that in some small way these stamps will inspire in you and the others who see them a deeper appreciation of George Morrison's art and his influence. We think they'll add the perfect touch of abstract beauty and mystery that he intended as an artist. Now, at this time, I'd like to invite our other participants to the stage to join me so that we can dedicate the George Morrison Forever stamps. So please come to the stage if you're a participant. That's okay, come.
you, Steve. What beautiful stamps. Wow. I did, didn't I? Okay. Okay. Very much. Thank you. I neglected to name the Minneapolis Institute of Art as one of the holders of these pieces as well, so thank you. I'm very pleased to introduce our next speaker, art historian and co-author of the book Modern Spirit, The Art of George Morrison, Kristen McComb. Throughout her career, Miss McComb served as the executive director of St. Paul's, Minnesota Museum of Art, American Art, curator of the St. Louis Art Museum, and the Milwaukee Art Museum. And she was a director of exhibitions at the Minneapolis College of Art and Design, and she currently works on the philanthropic development team at Minnesota Public Radio. And she also serves on the board of Minnesota Citizens for the Arts. Everyone, please welcome Kristen McComb.
Thank you, Bev. Good afternoon. Is this working? Yes. Does it go down a bit, or I can be a little bit taller for you. Good afternoon. As Beth mentioned, my name is Dr. Kristen McComb, and I'm one of the authors of the book Modern Spirit: The Art of George Morrison, which won a Minnesota Book Award in 2014. I'm an art historian and a museum curator, and was lucky enough to discover the work of George Morrison in the collection of the Minnesota Museum of American Art in St. Paul when I was executive director there from 2009 to 2020. When I first encountered George's work in the museum storage facility, it literally blew my socks off. Here was a treasure trove of work of the utmost beauty, power, sophistication, and depth of expression. It operated on the same platform of excellence that I had known studying 20th century art from New York and across Europe. Where had this work been all my life? I decided then and there that I would organize a touring exhibition that would show the rest of the country the brilliance of George's work. Art exhibitions and catalogs are a great way to get the work of a master like George Morrison known to a broader audience. But we clearly have another way, a USPS commemorative forever postage stamp. What an idea. To grace a simple envelope or postcard with these incredible images, something that can appear in anyone's mailbox all over the world. Here is the true way to make George's art available to all. I'd like to thank Breon Morrison, Roxanne Berglund, and the USPS Commemorative Committee for inviting me today to speak a few words about George's work. I'm very honored to be here amongst all of you today. First, it is important to know that George's art fits squarely into the best of what modern artists were creating in the 20th century. Having studied at the Minneapolis College of Art in the 1940s and the Art Students League in New York in the 1950s, and curious about art he was seeing in museums and galleries throughout the United States and Europe, as Hazel is so aptly stated in her talk, George absorbed the concept of abstraction, of pulling apart the visible world into its components of form, color, and line. Marks made on a two-dimensional surface bounded by a frame, something created entirely through human invention. There was no mistaking these paintings for what we see every day out our windows, over the lake, or at our feet. They exist firmly in the column of art, not nature, and George was a great artist. What distinguishes his work beyond the abstraction of his peers, though, is the degree to which nature occupies a leading role in their very being, as if both art and nature were part of the same universal life force. Nowhere is this more evident in George's paintings than in the horizon line. an element that marks all 5 stamps in the series. From one of the first times George employs it in his work, and that is seen here in the stamp in the first row at the top. It's called Sun and River from 1949, the one where the sun appears to cut a slice out of the lake. And then almost always from the late 60s onward, the horizon line stretches 1/4 of the way down from the top, dividing both the landscape and the composition into 2 parts. An artist indicates the horizon with a line, but we don't actually see a line. We see a horizontal split between sky and water. The horizon is an optical illusion. It doesn't actually exist outside of what we see. George masterfully plumbs the depths of what we see, and with the simplest of artistic conventions, a line, then shape-shifts everything around that. Through it, George shows how the natural world seen daily out his window at Red Rock is inextricably bound with the dual mysteries of how we humans see and experience nature, and how we embrace and love this world through art. It was this binding together of art and nature in George's work that brings me to my final point, how this introduced a fundamentally Native American worldview into 20th century modernism. The abstract marks that George brilliantly manifests in these works were born of the intimate connection of Native American spirituality and the natural world, the oneness with the nature that animates every single one of his works of art. In these stamps, we see it in how the lake roils in impressionistic-like blobs of paint in stamp 2, and now I'm working down the rows here, the second row, and in the geological strata that rhythmically emerge from the shore in the 3rd stamp, in the watery flotsam and jetsam that practically overtake the composition in stamp 4, and in the rock-like forms that float in stamp 5 as if levitating with color and pulsing with life. This is a, quote, kind of religion, as George so aptly put it. A religion that all of us can now sense, see, and be moved by as we share the life force of George Morrison's art with the rest of the world in these remarkable, breathtaking stamps. Miigwech.
Thank you. I've looked at them that way before, but as you say it, it just makes it so clear. They're beautiful. The next speaker in our prestigious lineup is Andrea Carlson. Ms. Carlson is a Chicago-based artist and writer. She has received many awards for her work, which has been acquired by institutions such as the Whitney Museum of American Art, the Minneapolis Institute of Art, and the National Gallery of Canada. Everyone, please welcome Andrea Carlson.
Bujun in the Noe Morganidak, Anishinaabe Dok, Chimukamanok, Andrea Carlson Indigenous Cause, Kageasagik, Dash Jawa Gwaneashik Indigo, Mekanak Nindodem, Bichike Dash Tobasanakuk Canoe Iban, Niawee, Grand Portage, or Gitche or Nigaming, Ishanakazo, Nidishkonik Nin Dada, Miigwech, Bizendawieg. I first met George Morrison when I was 16 years old at the Johnson Heritage Post in Grand Marais, Minnesota. My dad had some artwork there. He's a Grand Portage member. And Hazel Belvo and George were there. And George was, his glasses were taped up. He was kind of bent over a little bit. And my dad said, "Come over and meet George. I want you to meet him. He's, you know, I grew up seeing his artwork, his color palette, his horizon lines were etched in my mind just as much as the landscape here." So I came over and to meet him, and he said, "You're an emerging artist. You're 16." He's like, "Good. Start off young, and paint until you die." So that's my George Morrison mandate: is to paint until I die. He also said that a lot of people are critical of formal education and are critical of the education system in the United States. But he said, get a formal education, even if you're an artist. Go do that. I was 16, I didn't know what that was, so like when we got in the car, I was like, Dad, what's a formal education? And he's like, he's telling you to go to college. So I did that. I went to college, and thankfully, due to the Grand Portage Scholarship Program, I went to the very program that George Morrison had taught at prior at the University of Minnesota. I got a degree in American Indian Studies and Art, and I would like to believe that I am part of his legacy. We have talked about his history, his love of Hazel, Breon. We're talking about his work and how we still see it today, and I would like to feel like forever means a continuity in people and in artists, and I would love to be part of that, of his legacy. George Morrison, Iban, Gabe, forever, and we will keep him forever. Miigwech Bizendawieg.
He's touched a lot of lives. Our final guest this afternoon is Christina Woods. Miss Woods is a member of the Bois Forte Tribal Nation. She's the Executive Director of the Duluth Art Institute and the United States Senate Curatorial Advisory Board. She currently chairs the State of Minnesota Capital Arts Committee, is president of the Duluth Public Arts Commission, and serves on the State of Minnesota Capital Area Architecture and Planning Board Task Force on Monuments and Statues. I love that one. Everyone, please welcome Christina Woods.
All right, it looks like we're going to have a dance with the microphone. Is that what's happening? Buju Gakina Awia, Anamiki Kwe Indishnaka Makwa and Dodam, Onamani Zagai Ganig and Dunjaba, Christina Woods Indigo. I want to say hello to Kathy Shavers. She's the tribal chair of my community, my home on Lake Vermilion. Welcome, everybody. It is such an honor to be part of this celebration honoring George Morrison and his legacy, which we are all now part of. His imprint is amplified today here with these stamps that will be in the hands of individuals across the country. I have been asked by Senator Amy Klobuchar to read a statement. She was hoping to be here, and I will read from that now. Okay. Dear friends, thank you for the kind invitation to join you at the first day of issue dedication ceremony of Native American modernist artist George Morrison. George Morrison was a member of the Grand Portage Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa, and now his work will be memorialized by the United States Postal Service New Spring collection of its Forever stamp release. Though I'm saddened I cannot join you in person, it is such a wonderful and joyous occasion to celebrate and honor a beloved, renowned, and talented artist. Indeed, it is an exciting milestone for the residents of Grand Portage, aspiring Native artists, Minnesotans, and art enthusiasts. As you know, George Morrison was a founding figure of the Native modernism movement and is regarded as one of the great American abstract expressionist painters of the modern art movement. He continues to influence countless artists and inspire people across the world. George often drew from his natural world around him the stamps, and these stamps will include 5 landscape paintings from his Horizon series depicting Lake Superior and the views George had from his home and studio here in Grand Portage. Postage stamps are miniature works of art. As we honor a distinguished Ojibwe artist today in Minnesota, George's memories of the North Shore through his art and these stamps will now stretch across the coast. This is very humbling, this next part, and I am very grateful for the support from Senator Amy Klobuchar. I would like to thank Christina Woods for reading this letter on my behalf. I was proud to nominate Christina to serve on the United States Senate Curatorial Advisory Board. She brings her passion and expertise and has been a tireless arts champion. Thank you again for the kind invitation. I'm honored to serve you in the United States Senate. Enjoy the rest of today's event. Breon, I have a copy for you. So the remarks that I have, I think are short. And I want to just go back to my first memory of George Morrison, but then back a little farther. So as a little kid, I looked everywhere for the people making up my small world that looked like me. I looked for people in books. I looked on TV. I looked in music. And I just gotta say, this is for you, Breon and Rox. Go Redbone, come and get your love. And that's for all of your bandmates that are here today, because representation matters and it launches opportunities for Anishinaabe to have an impact. So through my life, as I looked everywhere, I realized very young that success for Native people was reliant on the acceptance into the white world, the normative world, and the dominant culture. And so I embarked on a journey to learn how to walk in both of these places, code switching in and out of every day, and being cautious about people's interest in me while I continued to look for those like me. And slowly but surely, a few emerged. I was 30 when my Anishinaabe mother, Helen, handed me the book, Turning the Feather Around. I was a mother of a newborn, and I read the book and I found myself everywhere in his stories, in George's stories. And that was my turning point. That book opened up everything I was seeking as I was looking for myself in this world. I was a teacher at the time in an elementary classroom, and I used his art all the time, teaching first and second graders conflict resolution skills, how to have a different perspective in life, and that you can color anything, any color you want. I surrounded myself with calendars and postcards and anything I could get my hands on that I could afford to keep George Morrison near me. I realized that then and now, especially now, George Morrison informs my personal and my professional work. The power of the rock is George. Today I lead the Duluth Art Institute, and I have a whole bunch of other great things I do, and I'm president of this and the U.S. Senate Curatorial Advisory Board, and the list goes on, and I have people to thank like Governor Walz and Senator Klobuchar and George, of course. But today what's important in my message is that although George worked hard in his career over 50 years to open up doors for artists to be recognized for their technical proficiency over stereotyped Native tradition. Thank you, Hazel. But he also opened doors for Native people like me to take on significant roles in and out of art as artists, leaders, and those who are here to help. I think about the difference it makes to have in our museums these uplifting narratives where once they were erased, overwritten, absent, and unremembered. And George did this with his work. I think about the people in place today like Kevin Gruber at the Smithsonian, Cynthia Chavez Lamar at the National Museum of the American Indian, the late Carissa White Isaacs, who is a dear curator at the Tweed at the University of Minnesota Duluth, and Dr. Kate Bean, who's at the Minnesota Museum of American Art. We're here because of George, and I want to make sure you all know that. I do need to say thank you to Kate for her role in helping the Duluth Art Institute receive 2 original paintings on loan for starting April 29th through the first week of June. You can come and see Phenomena Against the Crimson, Lake Superior, Spirit Path New Day, Red Rock Variation, Lake Superior Landscape. We will have those on view. I also think about the little hands that now George's work will grace when they see the stamps. And maybe they'll receive letters from their grandparents or people that they love that will have a George Morrison artwork on it. And I think about what that means when they can see themselves, especially our Anishinaabe youth, in something as wonderful as a United States Postal Service stamp. So now across the nation, Native people might see themselves in the broader world and know that their imprint matters too, and their imprint has the power to change the unseen to be seen. I really do think about our youngest ones in this way. So Chi-miigwech, George Morrison, for opening doors for the Anishinaabe through the life force of your work. And I do want to say a few thank yous here before I close. I want to say thank you to the Plains Museum, who is also sharing with us one of the original pieces of art, Sun and River. It's at the top. And I want to mention the Mia because they have the 5th piece, which we're not able to have on view because it's scheduled, and they were very gracious and very much wanting to share that. But I do want to let you know these 4 pieces will be on view at the Duluth Art Institute April 29th through the first week of June, and there'll be a very small, welcoming Anishinaabe opening ceremony on the 29th at noon. Thank you so much for being here. Seeing all these people here to commemorate and honor George Morrison is so magnificent. I say Chi-miigwech to each of you and for all the wonderful speakers and participants today. And what you've heard is really the magic, not only of this beautiful landscape we live around, but the magic of an individual who really understood the power of art. It's unstoppable. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. This nearly concludes our ceremony today, but before we go, I'd like to thank all of our participants and special guests. You helped make this a truly special event. Thank you. Couple of quick reminders: the Grand Portage National Monument, just down the road that way, and they're open today for your for the George Morrison exhibit at the National Monument there. And then also there's the Grand Portage State Park is wonderful with our high falls, highest waterfall in Minnesota if you're looking for an hour to kill. And then also I believe at 4:30 is our dedication of this piece to George Morrison from Donovan Daneman. You can get George Morrison stamps in the lobby behind you, by the windows over there. And you can also go online to get stamps now. Who knew, right? To get additional stamps. And I know I'm going to be ordering some. Some of our participants will be mingling around in the lobby, so just please come up to any of us if you want us to sign your program or anything. And now, to close our ceremony, please turn your attention back to the men on the drum, the Stonebridge Singers. It has been an honor to serve as your MC today. You've been great. Thank you so much. Stay safe, travel well, Chi Miigwech. Is this a traveling song? Should we stand? All right, Brandon says we should stand. Thank you.